let's get back to this really crummy Jay Powell story. We welcome back to the show Douglas Holtz-Eakin, American Action Forum. He's former CBO director, and Mohamed El-Erian, Allianz chief economic advisor. Gentlemen, thank you. I hope you heard the riff. I hope you heard Mike Summers. Mohamed, you know, it's something. This is, you and I talked about this months ago when you were calling for Jay Powell to step down because his somewhat strange behavior on policy and lack of transparency in the Fed has damaged Fed independence. He has hurt Fed independence. And I would say to you right now, Mohamed, this business about he's going to appoint himself chairman pro tem for God knows how long, or he's going to stay on the board for the rest of his board term, which is not something chairs have done in the past. These are things that will turn the public and the markets against the Fed and will damage Fed independence. And that's why I say, you know, it's time for, it's like Cromwell to the sitting parliament. In the name of God, go. All right, Mohamed, that's my take.
So I agree. It's time for Fed Chair Powell to be replaced by Fed Chair Warsh. It's also time for the Fed led by Powell to become a Warsh Fed. What do I mean by that? A Fed that doesn't have mission creep, a Fed that communicates better, a Fed that's held accountable for its policy mistakes, and there have been many, and a Fed, most importantly, that look forward, not back. The longer this transition is delayed, the greater the risk to Fed independence.
That's what I think. I mean, that's what I think, and I'm going to make sure it's clear in the riff that I just put together, because that's what, you know, he can parade on Doug Holtz-Eakin about independence, but what he's doing now, or what he's threatening to do now, what is he going to do? He's going to pick a legal fight with the president in the middle of this incredibly historical war that can do the country and the rest of the world so much good. I mean, not that he should. He doesn't have the authority to appoint himself chair forever anyway. But I just think he's doing more to damage Fed independence. And that's one reason why it's important for him. Just do what other Fed chairmen have done. You know what I mean? Go quietly off into the night. We can have a little plaque for him, you know, put it on his tombstone. He went quietly off into the night. What do you think, Doug Holtz-Eakin?
I think you take that whole issue off the table by getting Kevin Warsh confirmed as his successor.
Yes.
The key to that is to get Senator Tillis to drop the hold. And the key to getting Senator Tillis to drop the hold is to drop the DOJ suit. I view that as, you know, in simple cost-benefit terms, a win. And that's what I think that's what should happen. That suit should go away for better, for worse, not on the merits, because on the whole, we're better off if we move forward and Warsh gets confirmed. And then there's no decision for Powell to make other than to go, because look, his term's up and the suit's been resolved, as he said. That seems to me the short, straight arrow path to getting to the end point. So look, that's what I hope happens.
I agree with your end point 1,000%. You know, hashtag free Kevin Warsh. Got it. But I will say this. It came up last night on the show. I think it was Molly Hemingway and Rich Lowry. But look, the Justice Department has the right to investigate or at least have communications with agencies. I mean, the Fed won't turn over certain papers and documents, okay? Look, I think the trouble with Powell is he's inept, not that he's a criminal. But the Federal Reserve as an institution, to come back to Mohammed's points today and many months ago, as an institution, why won't they respond? It seems like a simple request from the Justice Department. All right, there are cost overruns. Just lay it out. That's what you do. I mean, it's, you know, the Federal Reserve is not sitting on another planet. They're part of the executive branch.
I agree with all that, but this is how I view the universe. I mean, number one, what's the primary objective? That's what I just described. You get Warsh in the chair and you're done. How do you deal with the cost overruns and what went on with the renovation? Well, Congress does oversight of the Fed. Be serious about it. I mean, there are ways to get both outcomes, and I think both outcomes are important. But I don't think this one serves us well, because we don't get the outcome we want on the investigation, and we prolong the transition. That's not a good way to go.
Well, you're right. The clock's ticking. I mean, my friend Dan Clifton was saying if Kevin Warsh doesn't get in, motion by May 1st, May 15th comes up, then you don't have a new Fed chair. There's no confirmation.
You can lose a lot of money betting on the Senate going fast. So I think we should get going.
Yeah, you're right. Mohamed, we're going to have a recession. How do you read the economy? The Wall Street Journal survey says no recession. I don't know who the people are anymore and whether they're any supply side. I mean, I don't know anything. But anyway, I'm asking you, are we going to have a recession, or should we not just look through this temporary disruption and the war, which is about halfway through Mr. Trump's estimates?
So first, I don't think we're going to have a recession. My central scenario is no recession. And there's a 15% chance that we may actually have the productivity gains from AI much earlier. What's the recession risk? It's about 35%. I think what the market doesn't get, Larry, is what the White House has said, which is, yes, we're going to get through this, but there will be a bumpy period before. Because what has happened now in the war is we've gone from disruptions to damage. And damage takes a lot longer to fix. So we are looking at a period of higher energy prices and higher mortgage rates. And the market doesn't quite realize that this is going to be with us. It's just looking at the destination, but we've got to navigate this journey. And the sooner the market realizes that, the easier this navigation will be.
I mean, Dougie, these are hard things. We are economists. We're not military experts or strategists. But, look, you want to see the 200 ships at the top of the Persian Gulf. You want to see them sailing through the Strait of Hormuz. We're going to have to do the heavy lifting. All right. There's a Marine Expeditionary Force. I don't know what that means. I just know one is coming. It's possible that they'll do some heavy lifting in there. We know that the Navy and CENTCOM is now, taken after all the Iranian military stuff on the banks of the waterway and so forth. But I mean, if the thing's over in 6 weeks, the ship starts sailing, and then ultimately the war's got to end. Wouldn't that make a big correction? I mean, we're producing all this oil and all this gas.
The key here is the producing all that oil and all that gas. And what Mohamed said was very important. We have switched from just stopping the transportation of existing production to destroying the potential to produce. That's a change in this episode that I don't really like, because that lasts longer and that impairs the oil and natural gas markets longer. So I'm not a big, I don't think that's a good development. In the absence of that, everything is exactly as he said. All of the near-term readings have been stronger. They're all pre-war data, but they're all coming in stronger than expected. So the economy is in good shape going in. If it's strictly transitory, you get the headwinds for a second, then you get the tailwinds, you get a little inflation pressure, and then you get disinflation. That's all entirely manageable. Durable damage to a lot of energy infrastructure, that's the fear.
Yeah, well, all those countries should give them 100% depreciation the way we did. I mean, that'd be very helpful. I don't know if they can do that in those other countries. Mohamed, last point. Stock market has really not fallen very much. I mean, it's not even a 10, 12% correction.
Yes, we're only 3 to 4% of the highs, and that tells you there's other things going on that's much more encouraging. And let's not forget the energy security. All we have to worry about here is the price of gas and the price of heating oil. Go to Europe, go to Asia, they're not just worried about the price, they're worried about the supplies. And you already see a number of Asian countries taking measures to try to lower consumption. So the US is in a better place because of energy security, but outside the US, it's price and volume that are of concern.
Energy security, 100%. I have a synonym for that. It's called drill, baby, drill. Just saying, fellas. Doug Holtz-Eakin, thank you very much. Mohamed El-Erian, thank you ever so much.